Hello, my name is Alzonia Shalise, and this is episode 3 of the Homeless Chronicles. Maybe 2, because I think one got deleted by accident. That was my mistake. Do you like my hat? I got myself a new hat and a little necklace to make myself feel better. I would like to talk to you today about being homeless. Um, Being homeless is not easy. It's not an easy thing. Although I am told that I make it look easy, um, it's not easy by a long shot. I was blessed that when I decided to become homeless, when I became homeless, I had all of my documentation with me. I had my birth certificate, I had my social security card, I had a phone, very important. I had my driver's license. Um, I didn't have any money. I had I didn't have any food. I had a car that if I could get to it, I would have a roof over my head. A lot of people are not that fortunate. One, they didn't have a choice to become homeless. All of their choices were taken away from them. They don't have ID. They've lost their identification. They don't have access to their birth certificate or to anything that could rightfully identify them. They don't have an address. I didn't have an address. Okay, so when I moved to California, I first went to LA to try to find a job, and it proved to be very difficult because I didn't have transportation. I had to try to learn how to ride the buses, and they didn't care where they drop you off. They acted like they didn't know where you were going. You can give them your address or whatever, and nobody knew anything. So that was really hard. So once moved to San Diego, I was out on my own for a while. I was pretty much out on my own for at least about maybe 2 weeks, maybe three, before I finally gave up and went to a shelter. But what I believed saved me was that I had all of my identification. And I already knew that once, like if I tried to apply for a job, if I didn't have an address, if I didn't have identification, they weren't going to hire me. And in San Diego, as with any place else, you are immediately classified as a homeless person if they see you walking around with your backpack all day. If you have a really heavy backpack on, or you're pulling a luggage or a suitcase or whatever all day long, they see you struggling with it, you're automatically classified as homeless and you will be treated as such. So, trying to apply for jobs while carrying backpacks and luggages, it proved to be really hard. So I had to make being homeless a game for me. So what I did was I went and how did I come into some money? I think my dad sent me some money because I had ID. So he sent me money, Western Union. And then what I did with it was I rented a storage unit. The storage unit for the first month was $1. I caught a sale, and then every month after that it was $30. So what I did was I rented the storage room for $1. I put all of my belongings, my backpacks and everything in there. And then I purchased a small backpack from Walmart where I carried my ID, I carried my snacks. It was so small, it looked like a little kitty backpack. Nothing to make me look obvious as to where if I was homeless or not. And then I started applying for jobs. Now, how I applied for jobs, because I didn't have an address. So what I would do is when I would apply for jobs, I would look up the address nearest to the job where the job was located. I would look up homeless shelters and look up their address. And when I filled out the application, I would put the homeless shelter's address down. And so, very seldom will anybody verify your address. So, I had an address, and it allowed me to get an interview. Now, everything is up to me. So, I was able to get an interview. I checked into a shelter. I was in the shelter for maybe a week and a half before I left. Um, and a lot of it was because by the time I got into the shelter, I was in the shelter for 2 days. I had applied for two jobs, one at McDonald's, working early in the morning, and one at Jack in the Box because they were open all night. So this would provide me some place to go because with the shelter, you had to leave out of the shelter by 7 o'clock. So I applied for McDonald's to work from 6 to 2, and then I applied to work at Jack in the Box from what time it was. I believe it was 6 to 2 as well. So I would go to McDonald's 6 a.m. in the morning to 2 p.m. at night. I would get me some sleep. I would go to the library. After I left McDonald's, I would take a nap at the library that was close to Jack in the Box. And then at 6 p.m., I would go to Jack in the Box and then go to um, and work there until 2 p.m. 2 a.m. in the morning. Now that was pretty hard for me at first because since Jack in the Box was open all day, all night, I got off at 2 o'clock, but the McDonald's opens at 5 o'clock, so I could go there at 4 o'clock so as not to be out in the cold. And they were in close proximity to each other, but not in close proximity to the shelter. So the shelter told me if you can't check in at night by 9 o'clock, well, actually it was 7 o'clock, but 9 o'clock was the latest. Then we would kick you back out on the streets. So, but my me having those two jobs, it didn't matter. And I argued with them because I said I'm trying to do something for myself, and it seems like you're trying to put a wall up to keep me down. So I didn't last in a shelter very long. Also, when you're in a shelter, a homeless shelter, and I probably got off on a tangent, but also when you're in a homeless shelter, you are forced to go to the health department and get very unnecessary shots, run unnecessary tests, and you literally have to not be in your right mind to allow them to do the things that they were doing. I went there and they made an appointment for me, insisted that I go, even though I already knew there was nothing wrong with me. And then I went there, and all these people in the shelter that's walking around sick and sniffling and coughing and everything, they were in perfect health. But when I went there, they're like, oh, you have um, you tested positive for tuberculosis. So you're gonna have to come, and we're gonna have to do some tests on you. And I said, no, no, that's what we're not gonna do, because you have people that has been living on the streets for years, in and out of these shelters. They're coughing, they're smelling, they're doing all of this stuff, and they're sick, and they are have a clean bill of health. But me, I know I have a clean bill of health, and you're gonna tell me I don't, and I have to run tests? No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. So of course, by me having being in my right mind and being able to dispute some of the things that they were saying and tell them, look, you guys are not here helping anyone. What you're doing is setting a trap and you're keeping them down. You are attacking their mindsets and making them feel like they are incapable of doing anything for themselves. Except be in a shelter. No one should have to wake up every morning and scramble and find ways to cheat the system so that they can stay locked up in a shelter. And that was my problem. And of course, I was too outspoken for that. But so I didn't last in a shelter. I did go to work in the morning. I worked the two jobs, and I lasted. Sorry about that. I got cut off. I lasted for about 2 weeks before I was told that the pandemic was going to hit and that everything was going to be shut down. And so, upon uh, hearing that, I purchased my Greyhound ticket and went straight to Missouri and picked up my car out of storage. And thus my journey begins. For more information, follow me and you'll get the rest of the story. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Have a great day.